right, Stoyan, you're on.
Okay, thank you. I'm starting my presentation on Adele, her personality and career delineations, in my view. The first part of the presentation is dedicated to the personality, mentality, and temperament of Adele. Here you may check the birth chart of Adele, and also to the left I have listed the factors that I have taken into the delineation. The first factor is the ascendant. Second is planets which are configured to the ascendant through aspects. Third is the ascendant ruler. And after that, we use Mercury as co-significator of mentality. And final consideration is given to Almuten Figuris, which is the ruler of the whole chart. Just briefly on this chart, we may see that the ascendant is at 5-degree Cancer. Planets which are configured with the ascendant through aspects, we have Jupiter at 13 degrees Taurus and also Saturn 2-degree Capricorn. Additional consideration I have put on Venus, because even though Venus is slightly off the ascendant, it doesn't fall within the reach of aspect conjunction. Still, the antistia of Venus, which is the shadow point that it has, is almost perfectly aligned to the ascendant. Through a partile aspect, it falls somewhere here on the 4th degree of Cancer. For this reason, I have used also Venus. Then we go to the ascendant ruler, which happens to be the Moon, situated here, also co-significator of mentality. After that, some information about Mercury, situated here, the second co-significator of mentality. And finally, according to my estimation, Jupiter at 11th house is Almuten Figuris, the most prominent and powerful.
Say that again. I missed that part. Jupiter what?
Jupiter is, I said it in Latin, Almuten Figuris should be in Latin.
The Almuten of the figure, or Malmuten of the chart, the most powerful.
Thank you.
Okay, so we start with the personality of Adele. First of all, we check the ascendant in 5-degree Cancer. Here we start the delineation actually with Cancer itself.
Just a quick second, Stoyan. You're doing a fantastic job, but Scott, I want you to understand that Stoyan has a YouTube site that he does stuff with. And so if you ever present, Scott, we're not expecting this kind of quality of.
Okay.
So, I mean, because this is really sophisticated with pictures, and Stoyan is great at this, but he does it because he will take some of the video and put it on his own YouTube site.
Is that in English language or Bulgarian?
In English language.
Yeah. So I'm just saying his site's great, but don't be intimidated that this is the expectation upon you. It is not. And,
okay.
And neither Bob or I are going to be this sophisticated.
No.
All right. Back to you, Stoyan.
Okay. I proceed with the delineation of the ascendant as sign. Here we have Cancer. As we know, Cancer is from the qualities cold and moist. These show attitude towards life, which is generally calm, receptive, sympathetic, with emotional security being one of the main features for her personality. She easily responds to changes, also rapidly, all types of changes in the environment, but the response is defensive. It means that often she wants to either avoid, either protect some part of her personality, and it often happens through emotional ups and downs, which is something that Cancer ascendant is famous of. This is the only generic part, the cookbook type of delineation for the ascendant. From now on, I proceed with specific information that is valid only for Adele's chart and which is integrated and upgrading the delineation of the ascendant. First of all, I said that Venus is one of the main factors configured to the ascendant.
Stoyan,
Yes.
waving hand is a question, right? I'm waving my hand.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. Will this tend to lead Adele to be normally or more than normally? Will she tend to be over trusting of people around her?
No, I wouldn't say so. You will see later on in the delineation, there is some influence from Mercury, some influence from Saturn, and dryness within her temperament that she cannot be so easily trusting people, and that she puts herself into some distance, at least in the beginning.
Okay, I'm just aware of many celebrities who tend to be really good at the thing that they do, but they don't necessarily have good ways to choose the groupies, the financial people, or others around them that can often misuse or abuse them. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, this is one of the things here, and the thing that made the greatest impression on me viewing the chart is that actually there is nothing special in the chart showing this type of success of Adele, but still I found finally the reason of her success, and I will share it with you at the end of the presentation. So let's proceed for now. I just want to ask if somebody wants to ask something, to do it verbally, because I'm concentrated on the presentation and I actually cannot. I have closed down the window with showing the hands that.
Oh yeah, I was looking for that, Stoyan. The ascendant term ruler is Mars. That would give also an indication of well, you say defensiveness, which is what it's a but a water sign, so it would be how do I say it? She's aggressively defensive, maybe. Would you say that?
This specific term of Mars is in the sign of its fall, Cancer. You know that although Mars has triplicity in the water, it doesn't feel well in the sign of Cancer, especially because it's in its fall. So in this sign, Mars is overly emotional, hysterical, even overly defensive, and touchy and crying, and all of that. So it's a very sensitive position, but not in terms of the person being nice and soft and easily taken control of. It's the opposite, actually. The person is very defensive and very even sharp in the defensive methods the person uses. Adele also uses this approach of joking around, like being funny, hilarious, and she has actually a talent for comedy. And this is one of her ways to defend herself. Okay, we proceed with the actual delineation of Venus. I put emphasis on Venus because she has antithesis on the ascendant. As I said, this in general gives more softness, sympathy, and frivolity in the social life. Even though Adele is defensive, she is not antisocial. On the opposite, she's very social and approachable, but maybe to a level that doesn't allow people to get too deep into her personal realm, and doesn't actually also show her most inner thoughts, desires, emotion easily. But in general, she's approachable. She has the ability to communicate with a large number of people, which is further emphasized by the position of Venus in the sign of Gemini, which is air sign, communicative sign open to all types of change of ideas, of talk, etc. Now I assess briefly the position of Venus in terms of dignity in her degree in Gemini. In the weak 12th house, actually, Venus doesn't have any dignity at all. But there is something symbolic in the fact that actually Venus arose on the horizon just before Adele's birth. And in the astrology, which is of ancient times, of Babylonian times, this was something pretty significant of success, of popularity, and all the things that are related to Venus. In my belief, this makes Venus more potent and enthusiastic, and she has a role in supporting the health, appearance and the character of the individual, providing her with more feminine features, more harmonious and aesthetic features. Also, as we may see on the picture, Adele has some outer appearance. She has nice features. She might be considered even attractive. So this contributes to her appearance. Other specific thing for Venus here is that it rules the 12th house. The cusp of the house falls in the sign of Taurus, and this also brings the topic of self-protection and solitude in the life of Adele. Also, Venus rules the 5th house, which is the house of children and entertainment, making both these topics prominent in the life of Adele. Here we must point out some facts that Adele had many love-related issues in her life and periods of solitude. The whole world knows about these periods. It can be easily checked online. But she used this as inspiration for her songs and her success in overall. Another important thing to say is that she is a very dedicated as a mother. When she became a mother, she said that I felt like I was truly living. I had a purpose where before I didn't. That's her thought on the motherhood and how important it is for her.
Okay, so Stoyan,
Okay.
I don't want to summarize, but am I hearing you say that despite the fact that Venus is essentially peregrine with no dignity in the chart, it's within the orb of a conjunction to the ascendant, and that fact alone is, in your interpretation, giving Venus a lot of power. Is that correct?
Something very close to this. Formally, she's not within the range of conjunction. She's slightly off of this range, but nevertheless, symbolically, the fact that she rose just before the birth of Adele, and the fact that it has Antistia and on the ascendant degree, and the fact that actually Venus has some dignity on the ascendant point itself, being in Cancer, and on the MC, you will see later on in the presentation.
All right.
Yes.
I'm not trying to engender conflict, but Bob, do you, from my perspective, this seems. I mean, I think Adele's amazing, but this seems like an overemphasis of Venus. Does anybody else agree with that, or are you following the Antisha argument?
Well, I do know that Antisha has a role to play here. So I didn't know that, and that does make a difference. So I would agree, especially because Venus is so important to the midheaven, and in her career, Venus obviously is one of the key significators of her career, being that it's an artistic career. Yeah, I would allow that. It is unusual because it is at least 5 degrees. I guess 25 degrees, and it's a 5 degrees, so it's off by 20 degrees.
Bob, what's the argument you're making about the midheaven, or that Stoyan made?
It is the ruler of the midheaven.
Venus.
Yes. No, I'm sorry. It is not. It is not. I apologize. That's Jupiter.
Right. That's my concern.
No. I would. He is right. The Hellenistic tradition does show that planet rising before is important.
Yeah. No, I know.
I'll allow that. Okay. Antisha to play. Yes.
All right.
Actually, I would like to add here that Venus does have maximum dignity in the degree of the MC. It is a mutum of
It's
of Pisces. Mhm.
It
It
is.
is.
Say again, Stoyan. I didn't hear what you said. It's within what of the MC?
Okay, it is a mutum. It is the most the strongest planet at the degree of the.
It's an exaltation, Tom, in Pisces.
Yes, and in this point, it has more dignity than Jupiter.
Hmm.
Uh,
Go ahead, Bob. Scott.
I agree with you. Like my first initial thought was, wow, that's a pretty not such a great Venus. Why could it? How could it be such a powerful influence? And I do agree that Anticia is very powerful, something that modern astrology does not use. That is like an ancient secret of power. I also want to say that I think if hopefully this is a good birth time. I think what's interesting here so far to me is that if indeed this Venus turns out to be the key to the chart, then it's something we're all going to learn and say, wait a minute now. This is something that we need to look for in other charts that we may miss, that might really tell a story that a modern astrologer could not see. My sister has Venus in Aries in the 12th house with a Taurus ascendant. And I know it's a very different situation, but it's not Anticia, and she's not beautiful, and she does not sing, and all those things. So I'm finding this, I'm keeping a very open mind to this, because this may actually provide a key to many other charts. So that's so far where I'm at with this. I'm finding it very interesting. Oh, and one more question is, so we're using the divided house system here. We're not using a whole sign system for this, or is that going to be addressed at all? Or in the three of you, and where you've learned that you don't use the whole sign system?
Bob, would you address that, please?
Yes. The answer is yes. We do not use the whole sign system. We use the Alcabitius semi-arc system, which where we have been learning is the preferred house system. It is a more accurate, especially for natal charts. So yes, we do use that. To your point, I agree with your points also, but I think that how we learned of the career assessment, what we're missing in this chart is any angularity. And there are three main planets that define career, right, Stoyan? It's
Yes,
Venus, Mars, and Mercury. So we have no angularity in this chart. So we're having to decide which planet or planets of the three signify the career. The closest is, to angularity, it looks like to me is Saturn, but it is not typically a traditional planet to identify. It would give more emphasis. Go ahead, Stoyan.
Okay. I just don't want to go ahead with this because there is the second part of presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for this
But
exactly.
to me, that's why Venus would be important, because it's closest to.
Yes, in terms of career, yes. Now let's proceed maybe with the personality, and the planets which are configured, the other planets configured to the ascendant, obviously are Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is very well positioned in terms of the house. It's in the lucky 11th house. It is also ruler of the chart, as I said, Almuten Figuris, and it provides circumstances of overall support in the life of Adele. It is also exaltation ruler of the ascendant, which helps with optimism, joy, and favorable social conditions. The key here is that Jupiter sets positive circumstances throughout the entire life of Adele, circumstances of support, friendship, and favors from the collective. Although Jupiter has no dignity in its degree and its combust, Jupiter still is oriental to the Sun. It is situated in its house of joy, which makes Jupiter almost angular in power. And this allows Jupiter to bring help and benefits from friends and social networks. In terms of houses Jupiter rules, it rules the 6th house of health issues and efficiency management concerns, and also need of self-improvement. And as well, Jupiter rules, of course, 10th house of career and social status, making both topics very prominent for Adele. Here is an interesting fact. The start of her popularity was given in 2005 by a friend of hers who posted without her knowing a song, demo of her song, on the MySpace platform, where it became very successful and noticed by, except of the people, by music producers, which who actually offered her first contract. This is very important. The beginning of her career was supported by a friend of hers without her knowing about it. So here we may actually check this positive influence by Jupiter coming exactly from the 11th house. Also, in the most recent years, Adele dedicated herself to philanthropy and charity on a grand scale. She is very active in this field, which again bring the topics of the 11th house, which is networking and support to vulnerable social groups. So she herself becomes a benefactor of people.
Stoyan?
I find this very interesting as a fact.
Stoyan, again, talk
Yes.
a little bit slower, please.
Okay.
'Cause
Okay.
You're running from one thought to the next, and I'd like a little bit of a pause between the thoughts so that if anybody wants to jump in, they can.
Okay.
Okay, you're doing great.
Okay, we proceed with Saturn, which is the last planet configured to the ascendant. It's
Stoyan, I have just a point.
Okay.
To add to your emphasis on Jupiter, the moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception, and of course the moon is the ruler of the ascendant, so that connects the ascendant with Jupiter.
I wouldn't say that they're in mutual reception because of the type of dignities that they have are different.
Okay, it's mixed. I'm sorry, it's mixed
Yes.
reception. Sorry.
It is not like mutual reception because Jupiter
You're
rules
right.
Sagittarius, but the moon has exaltation in Taurus. So I didn't
Correct.
use this argument,
Correct.
even though it might be so. There might be some influence coming from this. Okay. Saturn, it is situated in Capricorn, the sign it rules, and it is in clear opposition to the ascendant. Here, another thing is that it conjuncts the moon. Even though moon is situated at the end of Sagittarius, it is within the range of conjunction to Saturn. Moon, again, let's remind ourselves that it is one of the significators of behavior. So this conjunction is very personal, meaning that Saturn conjunct Moon gives impact on the character, as well as Saturn opposing the ascendant. Now, Saturn is situated in its own sign, in its insect, and with this alone, it provides ambitious, laborious, and patient approach to life, also pragmatism and focus on reality. It helps the native to be sensitive for the objective reality, to be down-to-earth person, and this is one of the things that Adele is famous for. In the same time, Saturn is opposing the ascendant, and also it is situated in the 6th house of sicknesses and health conditions. It also rules the 7th and 8th houses and 9th house cusps. and of them 7th and 8th are not very positive when the ruler is Saturn and Saturn is opposing the ascendant. So we might expect problems within this configuration. I believe that configured so Saturn contributes to physical and mental health issues of Adele, solitude, and also feeling of loneliness and depression coming from this. And again, problems with lovers and partners, being ruler of the 7th house, opposing the 1st house. Now, in terms of facts, we must say that Adele suffered many and different mild mental conditions, not very serious, but still mental conditions, like learning disability as a student, anxiety and depression, as well as many love-related issues and official divorce. She had one marriage and one divorce. Clearly, to me, this comes from the configuration with Saturn, especially the mental conditions, because actually there is no another planet configured badly towards the moon, so it must be Saturn, the influence of that. While there are several mental conditions, we must point out that they're mild, they're not too serious up to now, although she's very, very young still. Maybe this is through the fact that Saturn is insect and is in sign. Maybe this brings some support. Okay, any questions, something to comment, discuss on this configuration?
I would say that Saturn really is a 7th house planet, being within the 5 degrees. But it clearly is, like you say, Stoyan, afflicting the ascendant, and health problems would be obvious there. That's a classic example. And being next to the moon, yes, the emotional problems would be obvious too. It's seriously of concern in her life. She has to deal with that, and that it is retrograde means that it's discontinuous. It starts, it stops, it comes on, then it abates. She has to deal with this. It's not constant.
Right. Bob, would this is always my question when I'm looking at charts, and again, I'm relatively inexperienced compared to the rest of you. But is this stop and starting the Saturn retrograde in the 7th house? Does this go to her confidence in herself in relationships, or is it that she is misjudging the relationships?
Well, it's a mental and emotional disturbance, because it is in the terms of Mercury. So I would say both. It would be, she has this, from her ascendant, she has this defensiveness, and maybe self-esteem issue would be a part of this Saturn influence.
The question where I'm going to is that, to the extent that we focus on celebrities, I think any of us who've ever known anybody who's a celebrity knows that people are drawn to celebrities because they're celebrities. I mean, they're drawn to the power, they're drawn to the money, they're drawn to the influence. So people gravitate towards somebody like Adele. They want to be part of the orbit for their own reasons, right? And so the celebrity, I'm looking at Adele and I'm asking, is she more than usually vulnerable to people because of her chart, or is she more than usually capable of dealing with those kinds of pressures that we're talking about?
In my belief, I think that she is quite capable of dealing with them and learning how to improve her senses her ability to cope with unsuccessful relations and trust to others. That's what the
Right.
impression.
I mean, because Stoyan, the issue, I would think, I mean, maybe not, but I would think the issue is, as Adele might say, does this man love me, or does he love my money and power and influence and celebrity status, right? So
I couldn't say about that.
no, I
Actually,
know, but I mean, I think that's the ongoing problem of a celebrity, is to know, you know.
well, she had her love issues even before she was a celebrity. So I believe that this is not something intertwined with the fact that she is a celebrity. I believe that it is more of her self-esteem and ability to feel appreciated when she has a partner.
Okay.
Okay, we proceed with the ascendant ruler, which is not so very well situated moon in 26 degrees Sagittarius. The moon is in its disseminating phase, so it has passed over the full moon phase and is going towards new moon, which, according to some Asian sources, is indicative of travel, of life abroad, but in the same time of great activities and of prosperity of the person. This is coming from Valence. In terms of more specific delineations, we must also assess the situation of the moon in the chart and the problems that the moon has. First of all, it has no essential dignity in the degree where it is. It is peregrine, which indicates some difficulties in asserting herself and including her receptivity to people and influences. Here is something that we already discussed that might be one of her problems. Another thing is that the moon is situated in the 6th house, which is showing concerns with the health and well-being, proven up to now. Another factor is conjunction with Saturn and antistia also of Saturn, which contributes to delays and chronic diseases. And the fact that Saturn rules the 7th house, here we have strong interference from partners and lovers that may contribute to depression, mental illness, or something similar. Another factor that we assess for the first time is the opposition coming from Venus, also almost perfect within 1 degree opposition, which brings all kind of problems in love and marriage, because this is what Venus signifies after all. And according to the classical definition of void of course moon, this is what we have. We are facing a void of course moon because the moon is in more degrees than Venus. So the last aspect which the moon made was with Venus, and there is no another aspect until the end of Sagittarius. This might bring some problems with staying in focus, which is again proven by her learning disability when she was a student. Okay, any comments about that, about the moon?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to turn off my video because I was eating something I didn't want you to see. Hold on a second. How come I can't all right, anyway, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't see that, for some reason, I'm not familiar enough with Zoom to get back to my own desktop because I wanted to look at her chart, but how do I get, like right now Zoom is my entire screen, but I'm not sure how to see my own desktop.
Are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
Push escape.
Oh, okay.
Top left.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Just want to look at her chart for a second. Yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't have enough to back this up, but I did read an article by, it might have been Deborah Holding or someone of that kind of prominence in the ancient astrology field, who would not consider the moon void of course because it's already in conjunction, approaching conjunction with Saturn. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm just going to say that there might be others who might disagree with the moon being void of course in this situation.
Bob, would you agree with that?
Stoyan, to my point, is right. I just finished a horary course with Sue Ward, and that we read Lily very specifically, and to the traditional method. Stoyan is absolutely right. It is not. It specifically. It does not make another aspect before it leaves the sign of Sagittarius. Therefore, it is void of course because it has moved, just like he said, past that exact opposition 1 degree before it is now.
Okay, so then let me change the question then, because so then my question becomes, and this is just, I'm kind of speaking out loud, I'm kind of just thinking here, is that I wonder, in terms of the analyzation here of the natal chart, if there would be a difference between, let's just say yes, and in terms of like literally saying the moon is void of course because until it leaves that sign, it will not make another aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a difference then between a moon which is leaving a sign and has no, it's not connected to another planet? Because you can't have it both ways. We can't say the moon is connected to Saturn here and then also say the moon is void of course in the same kind of definition, because we are attributing Saturnian qualities to the moon here because of the rays.
You're right, Scott. You're right.
We cannot.
You're right. Yeah. It is applying. What we'd say was it would be applying to a conjunction, but it is not in conjunction until it leaves the sign that it's in.
Okay.
It's not perfected before the end of the sign.
Correct.
So then
you'd say it was applying, but yeah, you're right.
Okay, well, it's applying to a conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, are you saying it is applying to a conjunction with Saturn?
It's applying to a conjunction, but it is not in conjunction.
Okay, so applying to a conjunction with Saturn. If Saturn were at 2959, it would be in conjunction.
That's correct.
If Saturn were at 0001, it would not be. It would be applying. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yes.
So then the question is, would we see a behavioral difference or even a difference in the life events if somebody had...
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
The answer is yes.
This is because the only situation is with conjunction when we might have planets in different signs being in a conjunction. The only thing that it is not that is allowed actually is this configuration is known as something like conjunction, or not full conjunction, but something like conjunction, because they're close by and the moon will reach Saturn shortly in terms of degrees. In the same time, they're in different signs. So yes, it should make difference in the delineation. And it is a conjunction, but it will become much stronger when moon enters Capricorn.
So then what you're saying is that it would be worse. It would be worse for her if they were in conjunction.
Yes. Yes, Stoyan, one other quick question, and you've touched this a couple of times. You're noting that the moon and Saturn are in the 6th house. Do you tend to disagree with the 5-degree rule?
The right term actually that our teacher uses is that Saturn would be in the 6th house in conjunction with the descendant, with the axis,
Oh.
So yes, this is the exact wording of Lewis. So even though it is situated in the 6th house, it conjuncts the cusp of the 7th house. So it is very tied to the topics of the 7th house, and in this case, it also rules the cusp, so even more.
Scott, you know the 5-degree rule, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I probably would. For me, I probably would read this as I'm not as a seventh house Saturn, but but I'm open to that. I'm open to hearing about that. Also, that it's interesting that Saturn is receiving Moon into Saturn moves into her detriment, which is very interesting there. I'm not sure meaning if we had a moon in a void of course moon going at the end of the sign approaching a Saturn, not in conjunction but applying to a conjunction in the following sign, but it was not the sign of the moon's detriment. I wonder if in the life that would make a difference.
Oh, I think so. I think that in the moon's detriment means that they are not compatible.
Yeah.
Saturn, I mean, Moon absolutely does not like Saturn at all, and is
so it would be worse.
Yes.
Do you agree or disagree?
I mostly agree.
Then my point is this: is that we have an interesting situation here where we have the fact that the Saturn is not in the same sign, and the moon is applying that it's not as bad. However, the moon is applying to a conjunction in its detriment, so that makes it bad. So it's kind of a funny thing here.
Yes, it's a situation just before catastrophe.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder.
Well put.
I wonder if as she gets older, they're going to be the things that are not good are going to get worse. It'll be interesting to see.
On the opposite, and you'll see why later in the presentation.
Okay.
All right. I want to say that congratulations to everybody. I thought that was an amazing discussion of the nuance. In the event that but I want to say this too, that in the event that we are able to get new people who are less experienced, well, that would be less experienced than me, we may have to have more breaks to explain more things, because that conversation we just had went fairly fast. I thought it was appropriate for the group. I'm not criticizing. Scott, Bob, appreciate you guys a lot. But if we are successful in bringing in less experienced people who are here to learn, that speed of our conversation would have been too fast in my view.
All right. Okay. Duly noted.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying that because part of our goal here is to be educational, I'm learning from all three of you, so I'm fine. But I'm trying to think of Christina, for instance, Bob. I mean, we might have to break that down into some more.
Yeah. I think we'd all be willing to do that.
Oh, I know we are. I'm just reminding. Go ahead, Stoyan, you're up.
Okay. Now, how to integrate all these roughs and edges in her temperament? Let's check this topic. After making some calculations, it turns out that she's a mixed personality. She's a mixture between melancholic and phlegmatic in general, because the dry quality slightly exceeds the moist one. She's mostly melancholic and to a lesser degree phlegmatic. In the same time, the cold quality is much stronger than the hot, so she clearly isn't sanguine, nor she is choleric. Yes. In general, this confirms that she must be reserved and patient and focused on the objective reality as well as security. In the same time, she is resourceful. She's capable of working hard. She's capable of achieving. In the same time, at least from the inside, she is very sensitive and to a degree adaptable to people and situations. On the negative side, this type of personality might show a person that is subject to either criticism or apathy. These two these two polarities. And here again is the topic of distrust, of hidden anger, emphasized by the ascendant being in the term of Mars. Also, here we might find signs of emotional weakness, inability to cope with emotions, and indication of depression and solitude. These are problems which are characteristic of melancholic type of personality. Also, in terms of body and appearance, we should expect medium to tall person with pale skin tone, and the body being solid, full, meaty, or overweight, which is evident, of course, of her image. In the late years, she managed to lose, maybe 2 years ago, to lose some weight, almost all excessive weight she had. But up to now, this was her image to the society and as a celebrity, that she is slightly different than the model of young female singer. Okay, any questions regarding the temperament? Something here?
Yeah. This reminds me a little bit. I'm not sure, Tom, if you and I discussed this at all, in our many emails about many different things, but I will have to tell this little story, and it kind of applies to the temperament. So, a handful of years ago, I took the Myers-Briggs personality assessment test. I did it by myself online, and I came out to the one that I came out to was a little bit more on the rare side. And when I read it, it sounded so much like me in every area of my life that I thought, oh my God, this Myers-Briggs thing is amazing. And I had like many people, like 10 people that I know, my friends and family, take this Myers-Briggs test online. And I would say for the most part, when they would read the description of the one that they fit into, they were like, yeah, I guess that kind of sounds like me. So I was thinking, why are they not identifying with theirs like I am with mine? So then I broke down and looked at my actual test results. And you could see the percentages of where I'm falling. And it happens to be that in my particular assessment, I'm not even close to the middle on any of those assessments. I'm either way on one side or the other. And so that particular Myers-Briggs combination for me was spot on. However, when I looked at everybody else's, they were kind of towards the middle on a lot of stuff. So that's why they weren't identifying so closely with that one particular thing. And I'm finding the same thing with temperament, as I've been using the more traditional way of looking at temperament. To me, unless someone is really has a high percentage, like a strong choleric or a strong phlegmatic or something like that, then the person doesn't really identify so strongly with the one that's a little bit higher in percentage. And so like the typical archetypes we have of the charismatic warrior or the bookish, nerdish librarian are the extremes of the temperament. Most of us, many of us, fall in the middle, and we have to use the other things in the chart to really suss out. For example, Adele has a very strong Jupiter. She has a Jupiter aspect in the ascendant that's going to give her a certain personality traits, and she's got that Saturn, which is going to give a whole different opposite kinds of personality traits. And she's going to be both. She's going to be sometimes Jupiter, sometimes Saturn, and that's just I'm just saying this at the top of my head. So I want to know what you guys think of what I'm just talking about here. How do you see what I'm saying here?
I would like to just say that I also believe that anybody is possible to be anything in different situations and capable of showing different degrees and colors of himself depending on the situation. So I don't believe that anybody is strictly one type only. This is my belief.
I agree with that. It's rare that you have one temperament only for particular individual. Usually there's a combination of 2 or even 3.
Right.
So it is very common that most people have that. But temperament comes from the Latin temper, which is color. It's coloring. It doesn't necessarily talk about behavior. It's really it's what the dominant personality type is that is basic all the time. But it varies. It does not have, everybody has a different way of behaving. There's a lot of different things that make up that temperament.
Behavior is different than temperament.
Behavior is definitely different.
Well,
what colors that is the aspects of other planets to the ascendant, as well as any planets in the ascendant, which make a huge difference in one's behavior.
and my response to Scott would be that, well, since I've given this test professionally, my response is sort of my overall problem with astrology is that astrology can accurately point to, it can give us pointers based on the natal chart, which are often amazingly accurate, but astrology doesn't address the level of maturity of a person. And so a person can become emotionally mature, more of an adult and less of an adolescent, let's say, in their life, and maturity is a potency that can create workarounds to problems in the natal chart. Can provide choices that a less mature person who is just sort of being run by their chart won't have access to. And so I agree with all the other comments, but my overlay is always asking, well, how mature is this person? How are they demonstrating markers of maturity in the way they make decisions, or are they just being sort of pushed by the tide?
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, maybe just to complete the personality of Adele, and then maybe we should give the floor to Bob, because the time is running away and we're taking maybe too much emphasis on Adele. Nevertheless, the last part of her personality is the mentality and the significators of the mental process. We here have 2 significators. The 2 are the significators for each and every person. These are Mercury and Moon. And let's check out how they are situated. Mercury, of course, signifies the mental process, the rational mind, and the interpretation of information. Adele has Mercury above the horizon, which means that she easily expresses herself and she is communicative in an objective and direct manner. Here we also have Mercury being direct in motion. The fact that Mercury is occidental to the Sun shows reflective and conservative mind that takes its time when learning something. Again, here we have Mercury moving slower than average. Here, of course, is the reference of her learning disability. She truly takes her time when learning something. Mercury is situated in the not very positive 12th house, but in the same time in its own sign of Gemini. It makes the person curious, with strong intellect in general, versatile, changeable, communicative. In the same time, it disposits itself being in its own sign. And this makes Mercury stronger than the Moon. So here we have dominance of the rational mind over the sensual mind. The sensual mind is being represented by the Moon. Here we have also perception and general understanding, as well as memory. We spoke about the position of the Moon. I will not repeat myself, but in the sign of Sagittarius, the Moon makes the person changeable, enthusiastic, and generally with a positive mindset. It also helps in cultivating friendships, giving sense of justice and sympathy to others. The very peculiar conjunction with Saturn gives exactly the opposite, but it contributes to stability, realism, and also some melancholic tones. Of course, the opposition with Venus indicates something different. It indicates frivolity in the social life, maybe sharp tongue, person who is known of her directness, and from time to time, socially unacceptable attitude. Another thing that we have here that we must pay attention to is the fact that Jupiter is the dispositor of the moon, which contributes to her mind being more polished, more positive, more sociable. And finally, final thought on her mentality, that due to the fact that that Mercury, no, here this is not true. They are not aspecting each other. They are not in aversion, but they're not aspecting each other. Clearly, this diminishes slightly her overall ability to focus. This is the second time that we have this topic, her difficulties in getting into focus, and also her memory. This is in brief about her mental significators. Do you have something to comment or to ask or to discuss here?
Well, Mercury is definitely the most dignified planet. It's just slightly better than Saturn, but it still is in the 12th house. So, yeah, she has problems. Well, I would say that her Mercury causes her own problems at times. We wouldn't know that much about her life. We just know what we see in her career type of situation, but it's not. It's definitely powerful, and it's in its own sign and its domicile, so it has to be important. But then it's in the 12th house, so I don't know if that's her own undoing, if that's something that she has to deal with in some way in that 12th house position. What do you think, Stoyan?
I think the same. After all, she really has cases of mental conditions throughout her life, and these were not only in her youth; they continue up to nowadays.
Okay.
So yes, her mental the mental process and the way she her mind operates, maybe this will be her undoing.
Well, it squares her midheaven almost partially, so there's some connection there with a difficulty.
Yes, to go public, of course.
Bob, would you say that she tends to overthink?
Yes. Yeah. I'm looking at this again, but reading Lily, a square in signs of short ascension actually becomes a trine. So she does help herself. She does remember. She does have a strong memory in certain things connected to her career. So it's still something that causes her problems because it's in the 12th house.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, on a positive side, it is in the 12th house, but it is the very dignified Mercury ruling the 12th house, squaring the midheaven, and it does paint a really beautiful picture of her writing in solitude and applying it to the career. So, I mean, there is another side to this that actually quite works well for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think it's both. It's her undoing, and also it's her talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting chart. Very complicated.
Stoyan?
Indeed, it is. I can confirm that the chart is challenging in terms of understanding it, because there is no planet, no factor that is clearly positive, clearly strong. We have strong Saturn and Mercury in the same time. They're cadent, like in falling houses. Also, we have positive Jupiter, but with no essential dignity. So, yes, this is
So
the challenge here.
you said you were going to tell us later on what the talent was from. How do you assess that?
How to assess what?
Talent, her.
Yes, this is the second part of the presentation, but I would not like to
Oh.
take more of the.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
time.
Okay, go ahead. No,
I'm sure.
I have my own idea.
Stoyan,
That's fine.
please go ahead.
Okay, briefly in terms of profession. Okay, we are 3 slides more and we are over.
Oh, no problem.
In terms of profession, how and what we assess. Again, let's remind the chart itself. First of all, we check what are her talents, because as we were taught by Luis, first of all, we must see what the person is good at, and after that to check what is possible to be the profession. Now, in terms of talent, we assess what Bob already said: Mercury, Venus, and Mars, which one of the 3 planets is strongest. And after that, in terms of profession based on talent, we start with angular planets, with the MC ruler, the ascendant, and the ascendant ruler. Briefly, ascendant ruler is Moon. We spoke about it. MC ruler is Jupiter, most dignified, and also the Almuten figures of the chart. Now, in terms of talents, I have assessed Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and I found them cadent and not close enough to the axis, any of them. Among them, however, Venus is the most reliable significator of talent, because it is of Almuten of the MC and has triplicity rulership over the ascendant, as well as partile aspect with the moon. This is what, in my belief, makes Venus the strongest among the 3 significators, and actually Venus is the significator of talent. So, such defined, this includes, of course, aesthetics, beauty, embellishment as talents, ability to have fun and to make people feel entertained, pleasure, like talents which are suitable for cinema, theater, creativity, and leisure in general. It also provides for the personal skills of good taste, enjoyment, style, seduction, communication, social skills, etc. Being pleasant in overall. Here we have something more to say, that because none of these 3 significators is clearly strong and prominent, this brings greater role to the MC ruler, which is Jupiter. It makes Jupiter even more important in terms of career, but also in terms of talents. Why? Because Jupiter is linked not only to the MC ruler, but we have the opposite situation when Venus, as a ruler of Taurus, actually is dispositor also of Jupiter. Now here, Jupiter contributes to features like honor, faith, temperance, interest in religion, law and politics, learned profession, teaching and advising in general. Jupiter dignifies and provides with authority and social acceptability. This is the brief drawing of her talents chart. Clearly, we have impact by Venus and Jupiter. Okay, speaking of Venus, here we must say that Venus is in Gemini, which is double-bodied air sign, and Venus should signify profession related with communication, with publicity, with social interaction. different types of relations and dialogue, as well as multiplicity, more than one profession. Interesting fact about Adele is that long before becoming a world-known singer, she already was a professional musician. She studied clarinet and guitar, and she plays them on a professional level before she became a singer. So here we have this multiplicity of profession. Possible professions that Venus might give if we try to pretend that we don't know what is the profession of Adele. Here we have artists, singers, musicians, painters, poets, artisans, fashion or jewelry designers, cosmetics and hairdressers, and also the sphere of tourism in all its possible aspects. This is what Venus gives generally in terms of indicator. Situated specifically in the chart of Adele, where it is in the 12th house and ruling the 12th house, this brings self-sufficiency and contributes towards self-realization as paths to develop her career. It is very important to say that in around 17 years as a world-known singer, being such, she made only one duet song in her last album. So here we have self-sufficient, self-realizing celebrity. Also, Venus rules the 5th house of children and entertainment, making both these topics very prominent. And it is clear that she excels in her performance. And if you have watched one of her shows online, they're evident that she is good not only on the music stage, but also in reality shows and in comedy shows. She truly has talent about that. And she's also known as being very open, direct, funny, and genuinely entertaining person. The person that makes you laugh, indeed, if you have watched some interviews or her reality show or something like that. Here I found something very interesting about her. Because Venus in her chart combines in one the features of the fine arts profession together with self-sufficiency coming from the 12th house, entertainment coming from the 5th house, this is the clear path that she has. She's a fine arts, self-sufficient entertainer. And furthermore, her voice, which is one of her bodily features, corporeal, something related to her body, which is related to the ascendant, ascendant being ruled by the moon in Sagittarius. So her voice is blended with the feminine softness of Venus, with the melancholy and the depth of Saturn in Capricorn, configured to the moon, and in the same time opposing the ascendant. If you have heard her songs, her voice, you know that it is a very, very specific type of voice, which reminisces something of the past, which is classical, in the same time risky, in the same time, how to say, provoking. Yes, it is very, very specific voice. Now, in terms of MC and Jupiter, which have great impact on her career, clearly her MC is in Pisces in the terms of Venus. Pisces is called a moist sign that gives professional qualities as calmness, receptiveness, and sympathy to colleagues and partners, business partners. Also gives emphasis on emotion and adaptivity. All the above qualities are suitable for working with individuals and groups of people in professions requiring good communication, social interaction, and public appearance. Adele is known to be very easy to work with. She's not one of the celebrities that want special drinks, special coffee, special conditions for her appearance. No, she's very easy to work with and to communicate with. This position of MC in Pisces, terms of Venus contributes and gives possibility of professions as poet, musician, dancer, actor, filmmakers, all types of professions here. Also photographer, artist, illustrator, designer, writer of fiction or occult books. And the more I go further in this list, the less possible professions are here. I just put them here for educative purpose if somebody is interested in them. But the term of Venus gives more possibilities for profession from the first part of this brief list. The terms of Venus, of course, clearly emphasizes on profession in the field of fine arts and creativity. For this reason, I state that the first half of the list is more possible for Adele, more applicable. Final assessment is of Jupiter being the MC ruler, also Almuten Figuris. In general, it provides circumstances of good fortune and favorable social contacts on many levels, multiplicity of friends, fans, and popularity. Being in Taurus, which is fixed earth sign, this supports Adele's work drive, ability to progress and improve her work, as well as reaching lasting good results. Jupiter is in the very favorable 11th house, which suggests a profession related to groups of people, the general public, big organizations, social actions, support of the collective, etc. And also, the special position of Jupiter in the chart makes Jupiter equal to Venus in importance for the profession. Another house that Jupiter rules is the 6th house, which is the house of self-improvement, of hard work, of service to others, and also of health issues. Due to the good position of Jupiter, we should not expect too many negative effects coming out from this rulership over the 6th house. But here is some interesting fact that in 2011, maybe 2 or 3 years after her big break on the world stage, she had to undergo a pause in her career and to have vocal cord surgery. She had a very nasty condition on the cords, which are her main body organ of her career, her voice. And the operation was successful. So here we have the reference towards a well-situated benefic ruling the negative 6th house of health issues. Another example that I found in her biography online. And actually that is all of my presentation. Maybe if you have some final thoughts, words, considerations, something.
I think you did a great job. I completely agree with your assessment of Jupiter, and you said one time that Jupiter in the 11th is, and it's in the
Joy.
it is as if it were in an angle.
Angular.
Yes, and I've read that before, and it's conjunct the sun, the vitality, and so important. That combined with Venus, obviously you cannot ignore the contribution there. But Jupiter is one more other thing that I happened just to look at. But Jupiter is exactly conjunct a fixed star, which is called Almach. It's the nature of Venus, and I'll read it: artistic ability, honor, and eminence. And don't discount fixed stars, because sometimes they are the wild card in some of these charts that you just can't figure out exactly where things are coming. But this is giving her, and it's of course the ruler of the MC as well. So
Okay, good, excellent, and yeah,